Hey! Hi there, ho there, good morning everybody. Let's drop that down a little bit. Hey, good morning. Yes, it's 11:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tuesday, April the 7th. I was going to say 27th for some reason. 2020. How the hell are you guys doing? This is episode 39 of McRae Live. I hope you guys are doing okay wherever you are in the world and things are not too crazy for you. So I was going to do a different show than the one I'm doing today. But last night, there was a bit of an issue I had in my place in terms of a bit of damp, wet spots in the basement down here. Not in my studio, but next door in the next room. And so I was trying to figure out where it was coming from. And I didn't really have the time to prepare that I wanted to do for the show that I wanted to do. I'm not going to tell you what that's going to be. But I will push that to a later date. But I was going to do that, and then I got all sort of wound up and stressed. I'm like, that fuck. So I wanted to come back with something a bit light, because of what happened. But so in case you were watching Two Dudes and Some Bullshit last night, I think I did say somewhere along there that I have this cool idea that I think I'm going to do for the show tomorrow morning, and this is not the cool idea. So you might be thinking, that's the cool idea. This isn't the cool idea. Although, you know what? I mean, it's kind of fun to talk about this stuff. It's Halloween. But that's why. So, everything's okay, by the way. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. There wasn't a flood or anything like that. Just, how you're like, where's that water coming from? It hasn't rained in quite a few days. What's going on here? You know what I'm saying? So, but everything's okay. Everything's fine. But that is why I wanted to, or that is why we are, my sideburns coming out there. That is why I decided to do this show instead, and something a bit light. And let's talk about this. And what is it that I want to talk about? Well, it's kind of funny. I know that there will no doubt be people watching after the fact who are thinking, God, how, Dave can milk shit like nobody can milk shit. Dave can talk about the most inconsequential thing and make it feel really important. That's true. But this is something that I actually think is kind of important because and you guys know me. I mean, I'm a big fan of the original, and I'm a big fan of the original intent, and I love to be able to decipher things and look at the layers and the symbolism and stuff. But when I look at this one shot, and of course the shot that I'm talking about is the famous sit-up at the end of Halloween 1978. When Laurie is leaning against the, I guess it's the door frame, I guess. And Michael sits up in the background and does the head turn. Arguably one of the most iconic shots in the history of horror. Definitely one of the most iconic shots for Michael Myers in any Halloween movie, period. There's a lot of them, but that's definitely one. And most of them, I think, tend to come from the first movie, but certainly that is, iconic. But from a filmmaking perspective, okay, not from a fan, oh, that's so cool that, but from a filmmaking, artistic, creative perspective, I've always found this shot really interesting and really cool because there's things to break down there. And there's no doubt that, I'm sure you guys have heard me mention this before. But I like to emphasize this thing or this type of thing because I think it's important to I personally find these things really interesting and fascinating. And if you find them interesting and fascinating, great. If you don't, that's okay. So why does this shot work? Why does this shot work? Let me see if I can bring it up. I should have had this prepared beforehand. I've got it somewhere here. There it is. There it is. Let me see if I can bring this up. Okay, and I got to make sure you guys still hear me. I might. Well, there we go. Okay, so there. Okay, you guys can still hear me, right? Yes, I think you can. So what do I find? Okay. This shot's really cool, right? It's cool. It's a cool moment for Nick Castle and Jamie Lee Curtis. It's a cool moment for the character of Michael Myers. But why does this work? Well, one of the first things you'll notice, at least I notice, and I didn't really start to notice it. I mean, I've always noticed it. We've always noticed it. But you don't really start to, bring it from your subconscious mind to your conscious mind until you've seen the movie 5,721 times, and you've got nothing else to look for. And then, you start to, you grow as a person and get wiser and that kind of stuff. But one of the things that I love about this shot is not just the way Nick Castle sits up, but the creative choice that Carpenter and Cundy made to not rack focus, to not pull focus. Now, what do I mean by rack focus or pull focus? Well, that simply means changing focus, right? And we see that all the time in films, right? So, somebody in the foreground will be in focus and somebody in the background will be out of focus. And then what they do is they rack focus or pull focus to change the focus. So then all of a sudden the person in the foreground becomes out of focus and the person in the background becomes in focus. And you see that a lot. And there's many different reasons of why you would do that. And certainly there's many different depths of field that you would do that. If you have a more shallow depth of field, I believe it's more noticeable, right? If your depth of field is not so shallow, and depending on how quickly you rack focus or pull focus, certainly you can almost create the illusion that it's not happening. And then before you know it, it's happened. And the person's like, oh, it's happened. There's many different ways to implement this technique, and there's many different reasons to implement this technique. But what I particularly love about this scene, and I've always liked it, is, and again, obviously I wasn't part of the production, but they don't rack focus. They don't pull focus. They keep Michael Myers out of focus. Now, is this what I would call a hard, hard focus? No, it's not, or a hard out of focus, I guess. But there's something, of course, called a soft focus, which just simply means that the person is slightly blurry, but you can still make out certain, details and things like that. I would consider this a soft focus, maybe a little bit more than a soft focus, but Michael is out of focus, and they don't rack focus to draw your attention to him. And they could have done that. There would have been nothing stopping them other than a creative decision not to. But I cannot help but think, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not giving enough credit where credit is due, but I cannot help but think that, in a modern film, in a modern horror film, that the temptation to want to rack focus or pull focus, to, make a ba-ba kind of moment, dun-dun-dun kind of moment, without that, of course. I mean, that would be really cheesy if you actually heard that. But, creating that illusion, I cannot help a lot of filmmakers would want to do. And Carpenter and Cundy don't do that here. They leave Michael out of focus as if he's just an afterthought, as if he's important, but it's keeping in line with the enigma and the mystique of the boogeyman, right? Now, have we seen him clearly and close up, before this? Yes. I mean, this, of course, is at the very end of the movie. We've already seen him close up on the phone. We've seen him clearly as Tommy Lee Wallace, as the Shape, is breaking into the closet. We get a good shot of his face as the light turns on for a moment. Certainly, we do see him. But this is, why would you want to remain out of focus here? Well, there's a couple of reasons why you'd want to do it. The first thing is that you don't want to draw too much attention to the bum, bum, bum moment, right? You want to still create that level of suspense. And if you create a bum, bum, bum sort of moment, it almost like it's peaking too soon, right? And you don't want to have this moment peak too soon. So you want to have this moment, milk this moment a little bit. And by not drawing attention by rack focusing to Michael and making him clear so we can see him, you are still keeping the audience in the same position, even though you are aware of what's going on and you have a bit of insight because you can see behind Laurie and she can't see. There's still a bit of that disconnection between you and Michael Myers. So you are in this scene Laurie Strode for all intents and purposes. Now, again, do you have a one-up as an audience member? Yes, because obviously it's not quite the same. You're not not quite in the exact same position, but you are in a similar position in the sense that you are in a vulnerable position. You are by Laurie, by the door. We don't, the shot is not past Laurie, right? So the shot isn't of just the shape sitting up and looking to the camera, which you could have done. You could get Laurie out of the shot altogether and just go in for maybe a medium shot of Michael sitting up. But of course, that totally ruins the effect, right? Not nearly as dynamic and as effective as what we see here. So we are Laurie in this shot. We are, things are okay, things are fine. And the shape sits up. Now again, as an audience member, we see that. We are aware of something that Laurie isn't, but there's still that disconnection there. And the shape being blurred out still preserves the enigma of the boogeyman of Michael Myers. How, who is this guy? How is he able to do this? What is this? My goodness, it's such a great moment. And I cannot help but feel that if we were to rack focus or draw our attention to Michael saying, hey, look, there he is, bum, bum, bum. And hey, in case you didn't notice, bum, bum, bum. And it's kind of like, yeah, you don't need to do that. Let the images speak for themselves. Just have him sit up and just let the chips fall where they may. And if it's framed beautifully, which it is, it's performed beautifully, which it is, and we'll get to the performance in a moment, then you don't need to do anything else. And so I've always really appreciated the what am I going to say? Not being tempted, I should say, avoiding the temptation, if there is one, maybe there wasn't one, but avoiding the decision to rack focus or pull focus and show Michael in focus as he sits up. Great choice to do. He's blurred out. The mask looks great. Fantastic. Another great detail to bring to your attention is his shadow on the door next to him. What a great shadow. I don't think this gets enough credit. I mean, when you look at this, it looks so cool, and he sits up. It's like it's the, again, how do I say this? It's like, when you're looking at Michael, you're drawn to his face, but beside him is the shadow of him. It's like the shadow self. There he is, the other side of him, right? He's a human being but he has a slight supernatural edge to him. You know what I mean? And this image right here is, you totally could play into the two sides of his character, because he is a human being. It's not like he was, a virgin birth and spot, where the hell did this kid come from? At one point we assumed that Michael was a cute little boy, and at one point he laughed and, he, I don't know, he had birthday parties and he had, little friends and, he would ride his bike around. And at one point we assumed that he was maybe a normal child. We don't know, right? We don't, we're not quite sure. And I've always looked at this and seen that it's almost like there's, which is Michael and which is the evil side. Now, what I mean by this is, again, we are never supposed to know what is driving Michael. We are never supposed to know that. That's part of the mystique and the allure that keeps us sort of fascinated by his character. You reveal that. You have him speak, or, you reveal some sort of intense backstory with all kinds of exposition. You're going to destroy the fundamental foundation of the character and what makes him so intriguing and what makes him very different than Freddy and Jason. And so you don't want to destroy that. But having this, and again, I'm not saying that this was the intention of what Carpenter and Cundy were doing with this scene, but you could totally read into that. Having that shadow there, it's almost like it's his, I don't want to say it's his subconscious, but it's the other self, right? And which one is real, right? It's that shadow self, that other self that may lie dormant somewhere in him, that is not there anymore. He is a shadow of his former self. And it's a really cool thing that I picked up on a few years ago. And again, I'm not here to say that is the intention, okay? And but it certainly is a cool sort of a cool thing that you could read into when you are looking at the character of Michael and when you are thinking about that original intent of the character of Michael Myers. And it's just it's a cool little thing. Definitely interesting. The other thing that is cool about this shot, of course, is the way Nick Castle sits up, the way he sits up. I get asked a lot, and believe it or not, I do. That is not hyperbole. I do, not like every day, but throughout the 2.5, 3 years I've been doing this kind of thing on this channel, I get asked a fair bit from people asking about this sit-up, and it's kind of funny to me. There's some fan films that get it right. There's a lot of fan films that get it wrong. And I think it's because, again, I don't think they're like, look, I don't think John Carpenter directed Nick Castle to sit up like that. I mean, maybe he said, sit up in a with purpose or, with intention, but do it slowly or something like that. I mean, maybe he said something like that, but I don't think it was very deep and cerebral. I just don't think Carpenter had that in mind because, as we know, I mean, Nick Castle asked him, like, John, how do you want me to walk? Like, what do you want me to do? You want me to walk like this? What do you want, do you want me to walk like that? And John Carpenter famously said, no, I just walk, Nick, just walk. And then, of course, years later, he said, I had Michael Myers walk like a man and not a monster to make him scary. So, what sort of direction would have been given here? Who the hell knows? I mean, it could have been, I highly doubt it was as methodical and as with purpose and intention as one might think. I think Nick Castle was just on the fly interpreting and feeling the character as he went. But this decision that Nick Castle made to sit up in a very, I don't want to say robotic because I don't think it's robotic, but sit up in a very smooth sort of, a very smooth with almost, again, it's almost like, and I say this with a grain of salt because I don't want to create the illusion or impression that I believe, again, that Michael is fully supernatural in this movie, because I don't think he is at all. I think he's a person, as John Carpenter has said, but with a slight supernatural edge. There's something there. There's something within him. There's evil within him, and what that is and how that got there, who the hell knows. But he sits up with a sense of purpose in the sense of that there's let me backtrack for a second. So what's so cool about this is we've just seen him stabbed, right? We've seen him poked in the eye and stabbed in the abdomen. Well, I guess it was in the chest. It wasn't quite in the abdomen. It was more in the chest, maybe, but maybe more below the chest, kind of in the rib cage. Anyway, and so I mean, to take that, right? And again, this is 1978, right? Think about its time. Right? I mean, this scene was, and there's a video on YouTube that is supposedly from a screening of this movie back in 78 or 79, and somebody brought a old school tape recorder, what would be old school now, into the movie theater and recorded a audience's reaction to this scene. I assume it's real. We have no reason to believe it's not, but there's plenty of reason to believe that it's not, because this is the internet and YouTube. But apparently it's real, and really cool indeed. And of course, the audience just loses their fucking shit, when they see this, because you got to think about it, at its time, right? Seeing him sit up, it's like, what the fuck? He was just stabbed. He was just poked in the eye. He was just, what the fuck is going on? And stabbed in the neck with a knitting needle. What's going on? So it's those things where it's really, yes, David Ferguson says that's right. That's right, David. So to see that, it's like, what the hell? But the way he sits up, the very with purpose, right? It's like with that sort of, it's almost like something else is driving him, right? And what I love about the sit-up, but I don't mean necessarily that there's an entity that's driving him. There's a supernatural, like a ghost, demon, devil, not that kind of shit. But when John Carpenter says that Michael is like a force of nature, he's like the wind. The wind is not personal. The wind doesn't tear the shingles off your roof because the wind doesn't like you, right? The wind doesn't, rip through, a hurricane doesn't rip through the coast of Miami because it can't fucking stand Miami. Okay, there's no, it's just a force of nature. It's just doing what it does. And when Michael sits up like that, when Nick Castle sits up in the way he does, it's very methodical, but with a sense of purpose, but not overbearing. It's just so smooth, and the way he turns his head, it's just beautiful. It's one of those things I just love, if I can come over here for a second. It's just the way that he does this, right? He just kind of sits up like this, and just goes like this. It's just like, it's like, cool, I'm chill, everything's fine, One of the things that I think people get wrong when they're emulating this, whether for cosplay or for fan films, is they will either sit up too quickly, like how they did in Halloween H2O. Now, to be fair, I mean, he was just tossed off the end of Laurie's van, but I never liked the way that Chris Duran, whatever his name is, excuse me, my apologies, who played him in Halloween H2O. I never liked the way he sat up. Now, maybe he was directed to sit up like that because it's just like, you just been tossed from a van and blah, blah, blah. But then, of course, you can justify it and say, well, it really wasn't Michael because, he got naked and changed scenes with the paramedic anyway. When that movie came out in 98, it was Michael Myers. I didn't like the way he sat up. Duran, thank you. So, thank you, Smiths Grove. So I never liked that. He sat up very much like this, and he's just kind of goes like this, like he's 8 sheets to the wind or something. I mean, like he's had 9 beers and 4 shots and 6 tequilas, and it just didn't. It was awful. It was awful. And I've seen in other films, even in the Halloween franchise, even in Halloween 2018, although I do understand why they did this, he did sit up very quickly. Now, I loved the posture that James Jude Courtney had. Just, right up, right? Loved that. I always found it was a very awkward, strange angle to shoot that from. I think I talked about this on a McRae Live not too long ago. I always found it a very strange angle to shoot it from in the 18 film. I understand why. I mean, I get it. It's, he's sitting up facing the stairs. But I always thought maybe a better shot would have been from the top of the stairs and we see him rise and maybe go like this. So now we've seen him do this kind of thing, right? And turn his head. But how cool would it have been in the 18 film if the shot is from the top of the stairs, we see him rise, right? And then, he's like this, and then he looks up like this, like up the stairs. That would have been cool. That would have been interesting. Because you're executing the same, you're executing Michael's character, right? That's what he does. That's his MO. Those are the tiny nuances and details of his character that he does. That's what we would expect him to do, but it's from a certain angle and a certain position we haven't quite seen yet before, but still, executes the same thing, right? The same intent. And that would have been interesting. So, but the 18 film was okay. It was an awkward angle, or an unusual angle to see it from. James does sit up very fast, but he sat up with he did it right. He sat up with almost like there's a force pushing. That's what it is. It's as if there's a force pushing him up, right? And so it's not like he's sitting up, right? It's his body momentum. It's he's not doing crunches where he's like, ugh, like, I mean, in Halloween H2O, it was like, oh, okay. How's it going? And I see a lot of fan films do that. Not every fan film, but there are some that don't get that quite down. You have to rise as if there is a force that is bringing you to a seated position, and then the turning of the head. It's out of your control. It's instinctual, right? He is a force of nature. It is part of who he is, and that is something that James definitely. Again, I wasn't crazy on the angle for which we saw it in the H18 film. I probably would have done it maybe a bit differently. Like I said, maybe up into the frame and then we see him. That would have been cool, right? That would have been really cool. Fire all around him and shit. But I think my cat is in here. My cat's in here and she wants out. I didn't even know my cat was in here. 1 second, folks. All right, you want out? Okay, there you go. All right, away you go. There you go. Oh my goodness, that's so funny. My little cat was in here. Veda, she sometimes likes to sneak into the studio and hide. So I heard a meow and I'm like, is she in here? What's going on? And she was. So I just had to open the door and let her out. She's so adorable, so cute. I wasn't crazy on the angle, but I loved the performance. I loved how James sat up, and you guys remember that, right? She just sat up. She just sat up. Excuse me. I was thinking of my cat. He just sat like it was just like he darted up. Like he wasn't in control of that. He has no. It's just what he does. He's in that position. It's instinctual. He's a predator. It's just boom. There's some force. There's some. It's crazy, right? He's not a dude just sitting up. It's just what he does. It's out of his control, and that's what it is. And going back to the 1978 film, again, that is what I love about the choice that Nick made here to sit up in the way that he did. It was with purpose, but it was almost as if he's not thinking about it. He's not making the choice to do it. It just is. It just happens. He is evil. It's just doing what the wind does. It's just part of what it is, and so it wasn't like a human sitting up the way a human would, right? Or, and even when he comes to his feet, like when Laurie stands up and starts walking towards the camera and we see Michael in the background rise up, how does he rise, right? He rises like he's this flower that's like coming out of the soil or something. It's like he's blooming, like his shoulders are all scrunched together. Let me get my little shot over here. There we go. He's like this, right? He's like this, and he rises like this, and he goes like this. Like it's very like like he's not whoever Michael Myers was at one point, as a kid, right? As a boy, no longer exists. Okay, and whatever it is, whatever it is, not Pennywise. Whatever it is, we don't know, and we're never going to know. We're not supposed to know. But whatever that is what we're seeing. Like it's this that doesn't mean he's not a human being. He's still a human being. But again, there's that supernatural edge. There's something there. Like what the fuck is that? You know what I mean? Like we don't know what this is, and just seeing the methodical sort of I don't want to say robotic because Dick Warlock was more robotic, but just very with purpose and intent, and just it's beautifully done. It's beautifully done, and it's one of the things that I missed from the later. Well, there's a lot of things I missed from that they just do not do in the later sequels, obviously. But it's one of the things that obviously about and again, in 1978, they never knew that there was going to be a sequel. The original intent of this movie was to end it after one film, and I've said this 1,000 times, but it's totally true. Michael is not gone at the end of the 1978 film to set up a sequel. He's gone to bring the message of the movie home. That is the message. You can't kill the boogeyman. It was the boogeyman. As a matter of fact, it was. Tommy was right. It's this, like I said, that 90-minute Twilight Zone Hitchcockian type. That is it. You're not supposed to know. It was just like a Saturday night creature feature kind of, not exactly like that, obviously, but it was just one of those kind of things where it's a cool little ghost story. It's a ghost story. Do you know what I mean? And he's gone. It's like, oh shit, oh cool, yay, great job. And that's it. It was never supposed to go on. Of course, it becomes one of the highest grossing, most successful independent horror movies in the history of cinema. And certainly we understand why there was a sequel to it. But that was it. I mean, that is it. So, in 1978, it's like, Nick was he was implementing a few of his ideas and things and taking some direction, but nobody knew it was going to become what it was. Nobody knew the presentation of Michael was so important at the end of the day, because even in Halloween 2 from 1981, Dick Warlock is on record as speaking to Rosenthal. I don't know if he spoke to Carpenter about this or not, but if he did, I mean, maybe if Carpenter said this, maybe he wasn't, but look, it's 1980, 81, right? Dick Warlock was like, how do you want me to walk? What do you want me to do? And nobody fucking said anything. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. So he just was like, all right, I'll just do this. Now, when you watch the 1978 film, when you watch Halloween 2, it's the same night, literally like 10 minutes later, he's got a different walk. Now, some fans have justified it in their own minds by saying, well, I guess he was shot 6 times. I saw him 6 times. He's not human, whatever. And then that's why he's just, he's okay, whatever you have to tell yourself, okay. But that's not really why. The real reason is because Dick was never given direction. And he just was like, all right, I'm just going to walk like this. And again, now because of the internet and subsequent sequels, and I mean, everybody is myself included, dissecting all this and looking at shit, and now it's like, people look at the Nick Castle performance as the gold standard. And I know Nick Castle finds it a bit funny because I talked to him about this. When I met him at Fan Expo about 5 years or so ago, I asked him about this and he was like, oh, it's funny. He says, well, I mean, he didn't even know that he was a thing until he saw his face, right? I mean, that's a common thing where he saw his face on like MSN.com or something on a homepage where it's like the faces of, Michael Myers, and there's his face. He's like, oh, wow, this is like, 10 years ago or I don't know, whatever. But he said to me, no, I didn't even know, I didn't know my performance was like a oh, that's people are reading, oh, it's so like, oh, this and this. He's just like, I was just doing that, I wasn't thinking about it. I knew in my head that, okay, well, this is what the guy is supposed to be, but I wasn't, do you know what I mean? So but it worked. And in subsequent releases of shitty movies, you keep going back to that first one, going, that's what, that's the gold standard, right? But definitely, yes, there's a lot of things when we look at this photo and the scene of why it works. It works because they don't rack focus and they keep that disconnect and that separation between audience and villain, which is great. And the shadow on the closet door, behind him, beside him, which is great. Now, again, this could very well just be naturally when you are lighting Michael from that angle, you are going to cast a shadow. However, the shadow is so prominent and so distinct that I cannot help but I feel that, Dean Cundy, that was a cool, let's say side effect of, lighting him from that angle. It's like, yeah, this is great. That looks really well. And of course, it's a mirror image. And that's what I wanted to say earlier was, shadows are mirror images of each other. And so when Michael is looking, the actual Michael is looking to the left, maybe the real Michael Myers deep inside that is too far gone is looking to the right. You know what I mean? Mirror images, I love that kind of symbolism in film, and I love sort of looking for those types of things, and sometimes it's not intentional, and sometimes it is. When you watch a movie like The Empire Strikes Back, there is a lot of symbolism in that movie that is definitely intentional. And when you learn about George Lucas and how his understanding of religion and mythology and symbolism, and you look at those, you'll never look at those films the same way again. There's so much intent with symbolism in that film that it's amazing. I'm not saying that was the intention here, but certainly it is a nice side effect to think about when you think about the character, the original intent of the character of Michael Myers. Shadows are mirror images of each other, and I think that's a really cool sort of thing to think about when we look at this image here. And then of course also as well, the way Nick Castle sits up, that very with purpose, as if there is a force controlling this body. He is no longer who he is. He sits up with purpose, like it's just what he does. And he doesn't sit up like a person would. He doesn't sit up doing that whole, thing. It's very, he keeps his legs sort of, I think his left leg may be bent. I'm not 100% sure on that. His left leg might be bent a bit to the side, but he definitely sits up. His legs don't come up, right? It's not like he's going like this and his legs come up and he comes up. It's not like that, man. It's very methodical, turning of the head, it works so well because it tells you that it's not naturally what a human would do to sit up. I mean, just sit up, lie on the ground and sit up as if you were just going to get up. You don't sit up like that, right? So it's a very it's eerie. It's eerie and it's creepy. And when you do it out of focus, you don't rack focus, you keep him out of focus, it's even eerier and creepier. And then, bum, ba-bum, bum, ba-bum, ding, 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 ding. I mean, it's just, it's fantastic. So those are, for me anyway, the crux of the three very important ingredients of why that scene works and is incredibly iconic. You remove those things, and I don't think it's nearly as effective. You rack focus and show him to have a bum-ba-ba, a literal bum-ba-ba moment. He sits up like a person, and what was the other thing I said? There was that. He sits up like a person. And the, why am I blanking? Let me go back to the image here. Let me see. Sits up like a person. Oh, no. I think I got him all. Yeah, sits up like a person, the disconnect, the rack focus. Yeah. Right. So that's you remove those things. I don't think it's nearly as effective. I really don't. So, that to me is, and the shadow, right? The shadow on the door. That's what it was. So sitting up in the ways that he did, not rack focusing, and the shadow on the door are three ingredients of why I think that scene is so effective and why that scene works, and the symbolism and the few layers that could be interpreted in that scene, which is really, really cool. So anyways, hey, what do you guys think? If you're watching after the fact, comment below and let me know. Let's move over to the chat room and see how you sexy some bitches are doing. I think there was a couple of super chats that came in, so let me see if I can get them here. Let's see. Nick Kunda sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, buddy. Says, heard a rumor that Ben Tramer is coming back as Laurie's first ex-husband. Don't know how true it is, but it just feels a little cheap. Well, where did you hear this rumor, Nick? That's the important thing. Look, what is the source? Is it just some guy on Reddit named Billy Bob Boo Boo Boom Boom 105? What is the source? That is the important thing. Let me see. And it's all in the execution. Anthony T sends in a super chat. Thank you, Anthony. Says, Dave, have you seen the way Michael sits up in the porn movie Michael Does Haddonfield? I didn't know there was a porn movie Michael Does Haddonfield. I have not seen it. Maybe you're joking, but if you are, that is hilarious. Michael Does Haddonfield. And listen, the reason why I'm like, maybe he's not, is because we do know that there was like a Star Wars porn, I don't know how many years ago, like shit, they can do shit, guys. So I'm just saying. But if you're joking, that's fucking funny. Thank you for supporting the channel, buddy. Let's see here. Frank Riker says, Dave, how is Michael's three fingers going to factor in the movies? Also, should Tommy kill Myers, considering he was the first to see him as the boogeyman? I would be okay with that. But Laurie has to go out in a blaze of glory. She has to sacrifice herself in some sort of way that is honoring the character. And the way they did that at the end of Halloween Resurrection, I think was garbage. Absolute garbage, felt nothing. So it can't be like that. I would be okay if Tommy was the one, because again, it's very symbolic, right? It brings it back full circle to the original intent of the character and the movie. And as you said, Tommy was the first to see him. Was he the first to see him? Was Laurie the first to see him? Can't remember now. I'm going through the movie in my mind. I know it so well. I'm literally going like scene in order. But anyway, so nonetheless, he is the, see, people don't realize how important Tommy Doyle really is to the especially not so much to the later sequels, because they took a different path. But now that you're trying to connect these new movies to the original, Tommy is very important because he was the one that believed in the boogeyman when nobody else did. He was the one that tried to tell Laurie the boogeyman is real. Laurie, what's the boogeyman? Bring. Hello. She gets interrupted. Great interruption there. Leave us hanging on that, right? Leave us hanging on the question. Great editing. Great direction. But he was the one that believed it. He knew the boogeyman was real. And that's why, at the end of the 1978 film, Laurie says, and this has been proven. I did a video on this, a year and a half ago or whatever. What Laurie says at the end of the 1978 film is not was the boogeyman or was it the boogeyman. She says it was the boogeyman. But the word it gets lost in her breath, and she goes, was the boogeyman. Like, it was the boogeyman. It was the boogeyman. It was the... It gets lost in the breath. And Jamie Lee Curtis has confirmed this. Carpenter has confirmed it. And if you download the original PDF of the Halloween screenplay, it says it was the boogeyman. And the reason why she is emphasized... The reason why was sounds emphasized is because there is an it before that. It bleeds into the was, but, you know, the reason why she says... or the reason why was sounds like it does, it was the boogeyman, is because she is saying it was the boogeyman. Meaning Tommy, it brings it full circle, right? And then Loomis says, as a matter of fact, it was, you know, and that's, it brings it full circle. She now believes it was the boogeyman. You can't kill the boogeyman. So, Tommy is his message and is a huge part of that, is a huge part of the ending to that movie. He was right. So, and he's the one that said, you can't kill the boogeyman. Ah! You know what I mean? And so he's integral to that. So having the character of Tommy Doyle somehow play an integral part in defeating Michael Myers once and for all, whatever that is, I'm okay with that. For sure. I mean, you want Lindsay in there, okay, but Lindsay doesn't have the emotional connection. Lindsay was just a girl that, I mean, not that she's not important, but it wouldn't feel right to have Lindsay do it. It feels all right to have her there because she's one of the OGs, but to have, she didn't believe Tommy. You know what I mean? She didn't believe him. So it's sort of like, yeah, I mean, she certainly did not soon, you know, very soon after that, obviously, when shit hit the fan. But yeah, totally down with that. Totally down with that. And then, of course, Michael's three-finger factor. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to factor in. It'll be interesting to see. The good news is that it's happening the same night. As far as we know. And as far as we know, according to my sources, all three films take place in one night. So you may not have to justify anything, because as long as it's the same night, I mean, you know, infection or whatever could happen to the gaping wound on his hand may not happen yet, right? I mean, if the films were over the course of 2 or 3 years, that might be more problematic. But of course, over just a few hours, I don't even think it's an issue at the end of the day. But that's me. Intel Wild sends in a super chat. Thank you, buddy. Says, Dave, the mask in 2018 is good, bordering on great. But it would be so cool to get a new, clean 78 mask again for kills and ends. Some kid is wearing it, and he kills him and takes it from him. Done. Well, here's my thoughts on that. So, we have to remember that now that this is a direct sequel to the original film, and it's years later, that mask is now is a Michael Myers mask. So if somebody else were to be wearing a Michael Myers mask, if a young boy were to be wearing a Michael Myers mask in the movie, which you could totally do, he is now wearing a Michael Myers mask in the movie. It's almost as if like he's breaking the fourth wall in some respects. Now, again, there are masks of presidents. I can go and get a Donald Trump mask or a Barack Obama mask, but I don't know if I can get a Jeffrey Dahmer mask or a Charles Manson mask, although I'm sure one exists somewhere. So it kind of feels strange to me that they would have a Michael Myers mask in the movie as a Michael Myers mask, if you know what I mean. Now, it wouldn't be a Michael Myers mask. It's not like they would say it's a Michael Myers mask, but I think it would be very common knowledge at that point, 40 years later, that this mask is the mask that the killer used in this town to murder people. And I would like to think that maybe that would be in poor taste to wear a mask like that. But then again, it's 40 years later. And who's to say that, you know, a couple of kids have one and away you go. But I'm okay with not doing that because it would have to be done. Look, we are going to see a clean version of the 78 mask in the flashbacks. We are going to see it. How much we see of it, I don't know. How long we see of it, I don't know. But we're definitely going to see glimpses, at the very least, of a clean version of the 78 mask. So you are going to get it. I'm cautiously optimistic because I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen, right? How good that's going to look. I get your point, and I see what you're saying, and it's not that it couldn't work. It's not that it couldn't work, but it would have to feel like the mask would have to be really good, and the justification for him wearing it would have to feel like, I know you say, oh, some kids wearing it, mask, and away you go. But to me, it still feels like they're just doing that just so he can wear the Clean 78 mask. And I almost would feel like I would need it to feel a little more organic, not quite as shoehorned in. No problem. There's a kid wearing a mask. Their kid takes the mask. But if he's got a mask on, I don't particularly think he cares. Like, unless the mask is really ruined. Now, again, you could say, psychologically, it reminds him of that time. He wants to put it on. Sure, absolutely. You could totally justify it that way. But I ask whether he cares, unless the mask is falling apart and he needs something else to cover his face. You know what I mean? And he happens to see that, and it's like, oh, maybe that might work. It's interesting. To me, it's all in the execution. I'm not against it. But I always sort of come to would people be wearing that mask? Would a Michael Myers mask exist in the Michael Myers universe? It's kind of strange. But I like your thinking, though. I like your thinking. Yeah, totally open to hearing ideas. Totally open, man. Brandon Barry sends a super chat. Thank you, Brandon. Says, Dave, thoughts on AMC theaters? Might be shutting down for good, an effect on the future of the film industry. Yes, I have heard about that. I read that article. And it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. It's hard to fathom. It's hard to think that might be a distinct possibility. I don't know what's going to happen here. What I do know is that restaurants, theaters, businesses cannot remain closed indefinitely. They cannot remain closed. I mean, you will begin to see businesses shut down. You will. You may not see everything shut down, but I mean, restaurants, they can probably close for a month or two, but you can't have restaurants close for a year or 8 months or even 6 months. I mean, the financial impact is catastrophic. And AMC theaters, largely because of the debt they're in, most multi-million, billion-dollar companies have enormous amounts of debt. I mean, look at Netflix. Sure, they make a lot of money, but they're also billions of dollars in debt too, if I'm not mistaken. So they owe that. I mean, they owe that money to their lenders. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Listen, there's no doubt that streaming is the future. I'm an old school guy, babies being born right now, who are just out of the womb and they're, at the hospital right now, are going to grow up in a very different world than I did or you did. And when I say streaming is the future, I don't necessarily mean that theaters won't exist, but I mean, doing everything from the comfort of your own home is something that I think Orwell even wrote about it. But it's something, and predicted it like years ago. It's something that is happening. These things are insidious, and but it's happening more and more. You can get your groceries online now. You can shop online. You can watch movies online. There will come a day where the only reason why we leave our homes is just maybe to get some exercise or to go over to a friend's place. There would be no other reason. We can do our banking online. There's no reason, and well, I mean, again, maybe events, sporting events, things like that, but there'd be no reason to leave, and it's a scary thought. And I like streaming, and I think that as we all do, but nothing beats the movie-going theater experience. Nothing. There's like a 60-foot screen with incredible surround sound, and there's nothing like sitting in a dark room with a bunch of strangers having a communal experience, and there's just nothing like it. There's nothing like it. And I just don't think that. But again, that's my nearly 41-year-old, self talking. I mean, kids growing up, listen, it's all relative. I mean, if you grow up in a world where you never experience that, it's neither here nor there. So, it's very interesting. Look, again, we are not at a point, I said this the other day, we are not at a point where multi-million-dollar films that cost hundreds of million dollars to make, can make that back on streaming. We're not there yet. But they would have to figure out the logistics of it and how that's going to work. But that is the direction we're heading in. Now, whether theaters go away completely or not, we don't know. But definitely, I mean, you can see it. You can see, the writing's on the wall. Another 100 years from now, even before that, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen? It's a very sad state of affairs, because as somebody who grew up as a young boy through the 80s and a teenager through the 90s, and I mean, I don't want the theaters to go away. I want to go to the movie. I like going to the movie theater, especially to see, highly anticipated movies and shit like that. I love that experience. It's just amazing. You don't get, unless you have a look, you can have a great movie going experience at home. I have a home theater here at my place. I got a big screen and the surround sound, but it's not like being in a fucking movie theater. There's nothing like it unless I have a movie theater as my home theater, with a 60-foot screen. It's not the same. So, I don't know. I'd have to read more on the details to give more than that. But my thought is just, it's sad. It's sad. And I hope it doesn't go away. And my thought to the last part is, the future of streaming will become a more prominent thing than it is now. It's just continuing to grow and grow and grow. And the entertainment industry, the motion picture industry, is going to have to figure out the logistics of how to make this work. I mean, we saw it, we're already seeing it in terms of releasing and things like that, where a movie must be released in Los Angeles. I think it's at least in LA or New York, and play for a week or something like that in order to be considered for an Academy Award. That must be the case. And, there are Netflix films that were nominated for Academy Awards that didn't meet that. What they did was when you release movies now in the movie theaters, there is a general rule that there's an agreement between the theater chains and the studios that your movie will play for at least in the theater, at least for 90 days. It doesn't mean it's going to play for 90 days, but in terms of you have 3 months where it must be on screens, and then it can go to streaming. But Netflix, there's loopholes, and Netflix they'll play their, movies they want for Oscar contention. They might play at a theater for a week in LA, and then they'll take it out of the theater, put it back on Netflix, and then consider it for, and that's what happened with Roma. And, I guess the point I'm making is that the debate and the logistics and hang on, has already started, and they have to figure out how are we going to make that work? We're going to change the rules now. We're going to have to adjust this and adjust that and adjust this and adjust that. The same thing's going to happen with, movies going straight to streaming. And again, I'm not saying it's going to be this year, next year, 5 years from now, but that is the future, and how the logistics of that's going to, how you're going to spend, $250 million to make a movie, another $250 million to market it, and try to make that back on Netflix, without charging $500 a ticket is beyond me. Because right now, if 5 of us were if 5 of us were going to go to the theater and we paid $10 a ticket, that's $50 for 5 people. That makes sense. But if you charge $50 to watch a movie, I can spend that and invite 10 people over, and they're still losing money. Even if you charge $100 a ticket, you're still losing money. So I don't know how it's going to work, man. I don't. But I would like to believe that they are thinking long term and thinking about that. It's those logistics they have to figure out. But once they figure that out, and they will, once they figure that out, man, kind of sucks though. Kind of sucks, because I don't want the movie theater going experience to go away. You know what I mean? But I got to read up more about it, and then I'll be able to give more. I know what you're thinking. Jesus, Dave, more? You talked for like 10 minutes there. But I mean more of a focused response. Billy Joyner says, Dave, hey there, Dave. Hope you are well. I could totally see drive-in movies making a comeback. I always loved the drive-in, saw Jaws sitting in the car with my parents. Well, maybe, but again, you run into the same problem. Like, if you mean during the COVID-19 thing, I don't think so, because you still run the risk of you're still in close proximity with each other, even though you're in your cars, depending on the drive-in theater you're at, because there are some where you have to walk to the concessions, right? You have to, there's some where you can bring your own, but some you have to walk to the concessions, order, there's, lineups and things like that. I don't see that happening because many drive-in theaters as well no longer exist. So there are some that do, but there are many that existed but were torn down. So I don't think they're going to make a comeback. You might see a bit of a spike, maybe, but I don't think they're going to make like this dominant comeback, and certainly not replacing streaming, that's for sure, or replacing the in-theater movie-going experience. But yeah. David Ferguson says, you can't beat watching a huge blockbuster on the big screen. The cinema might have to bring the prices down in the future to compete with streaming services, maybe fewer cinemas too. Yeah, entirely possible. Like, whatever happens, they have to figure out the financial logistics of it. Because, like I said, the reason The Hunt and The Invisible Man were $20 to rent, that shocked a lot of people, which was strange to me. I guess people thought it was going to be $4.99 or something. I'm just like, no, why? Like they have to make up their money. And that's for movies that didn't cost a lot of money, relatively, speaking. I mean, imagine making, an Avengers film and trying to release that on streaming. Good luck making your money back. You'd have to charge like $1,000 a ticket. This is not going to happen. You can't do that because these movies cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make. So it's just, it's an interesting time. Definitely. Ryan McHenry says, Dave, do you think a John Carpenter cameo in the upcoming films would be cool? I remember he was the voice of a guy who spoke to Lindsay on the phone in the 1978 film. He was, yes. He did cameo. Do you guys know, name the movie that, try not to look this up. Maybe you already know it. Name the movie, the John Carpenter movie that he cameoed in. And it wasn't even really a cameo. It was more of a small part at the beginning of his movie. It's a movie he directed. He has a very small part. Don't worry, Jack Ellis. I saw your super chat. I'll get to it. The Fog. That's right, Jerpin. The Fog. You are correct. That's right. We forget that John Carpenter had a little role at the beginning of his movie, The Fog. Was he in Elvis? Was he in his TV movie Elvis? I didn't know that. Was he in Body Bags? I did not know that. Jack Ellis sends a super chat and says, better Loomis voice actor, H2O or H18? H18, hands down. And that's no disrespect to Tom Kane, who I think was the voice actor who did the voice in H2O, not to be mistaken for Tom Kenny, who was the voice of SpongeBob. He's the voice of SpongeBob. Tom Kane, I believe, was the voice actor, if I'm not mistaken, that did the voice of Dr. Loomis in H2O. Two different actors, by the way. I'd be okay with that. No, look, I mean, as long as it's not distracting, right? So again, maybe he is a orderly, in the hospital. He's pushing one of the, he's got his scrubs on or whatever, and he's pushing something, and somebody says, maybe, Allison says, excuse me, do you know where room 318 is? And he's like, oh, it's down there, and that's it. I'd be okay with that. That'd be cool. That'd be fun. Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Tiger Man says, Dave, name the movie with a character named Veda. My girl, talk about my girl. Maybe there's a lot more than that. That's not why I named her Veda, by the way. The reason why I named my cat Veda, well, actually, I didn't name her Veda. My girlfriend did. But the reason why we named her Veda, I should say, for all intents and purposes, is because she's black, and I wanted to name her something cool. So when we adopted her, she was 1 year old when we adopted her, and her adopting name at the time was Yoda. And I'm like, Yoda? Yoda's a guy. Why would you have the adopted? Why don't you call her Leia or something? That's weird. Anyway, her name was Yoda. And I'm like, I'm not keeping Yoda, you poor little thing. Yoda. Anyway, so I thought, well, how about we couldn't name her Vader because Vader's a dude. So my girlfriend was like, well, what about Veda? It's like Vader, but it's more feminine. And I was like, that's a good idea. I didn't even think of the My Girl film. I didn't even think of that. I totally, whenever I hear Veda, now obviously because of my cat, I don't even think of that name. I think of the female version for Vader. So she's a black cat, and that's why we named her Veda. Yeah. Let me see. Did I miss any super chats? I don't think I did. It doesn't look like I did, ladies and germs. We'll take this thing to 12:30 today. I got a few things I have to do, so we'll take it at 12:30, ladies and germs. 12:30. Great to see 200 people watching. That's great, guys. And whenever I talk about Halloween, everybody's like, Dave's talking Halloween. Get in there. They like to come in. Yeah, and if you've just joined me and you want to hear my thoughts on sort of the main topic, just go back and watch the beginning of the stream. And that's where I talk about it. Die Hard Drummer 84 says, Dave, what does your daily routine look like during quarantine? And do you work out from home if you can't get to the gym? Well, I actually always work out from home. I have a little bit of a home gym here, so I don't go to the gym. So that's cool. That helps, right? And then of course I don't have a treadmill, but I like to jog. I go out and jog. So I do that. I even do it in the winter months, folks. I even do it in the winter. Yep, I'm a yearly drugger. I'm a yearly jogger, not a seasonal jogger. And my daily routine during quarantine, well, it hasn't changed that much, really, because for those of you that may not know, I mean, I'm a full-time voice actor. So my day-to-day is here in my home studio. So about 65-70% of the work I do is always from my home studio here. And then there are times where I do have to go into downtown Toronto to do voiceover sessions at the different studios there. But my commute is generally from, the bedroom to the basement. So I'm very fortunate that way. My daily routine generally is I wake up in the morning about, well, it depends. It depends how late I'm up the night before, but I'm usually up by 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And then I will look to my phone, check my emails. I usually get emails that come in from my agents. There will be auditions that I will have to do. There will also be potentially session bookings that I have to do. And I have to figure out whether they want me to come into the studio or whether they want me to do it from home. And then I also do a bunch of IVR prompts as well for a company that gets me to do a bunch of IVR prompts. That's on hold messaging. So that takes up some of my time throughout the afternoon in addition to doing whatever radio ad or TV ad that I'm doing. Last week, of course, I was connected to a studio in New York City. We were doing a bunch of national TV spots and radio spots for BP Fuels. So that took up most of my Friday. I was doing that from home here, but we were, I was logged in through Source Connect, tapped into their studio I love Source Connect because even though I'm talking on this end, they're recording me on their end. So I don't even have to do anything on this end in that regard. So it's great. So that's sort of the world of voiceover. It's very sort of dealing with my agents, dealing with the potential auditions that are coming in, the bookings that are coming in. My assistant is facilitating that on her end as well, and she'll handle a lot of the final. Like she's handling the scheduling that I have and make sure that. We had a bit of a skip there, but I think we're okay. Making sure that I still have time to do these shows and scheduling time for McRae Live and Two Dudes, but also making sure that now, like the reason why I have to get off at 12:30 is because then I have to do a session with a studio at 1 o'clock, and then they're going to bring me in and all this kind of stuff. And it's very busy. I'm very, very busy. And then when I do have downtime, I break for lunch or something to that effect. I'm on the computer here, and generally I'm working on It's Me, Billy. And I'm working on that, and I'm trying to, I'm working on the Indiegogo campaign, and I'm working on setting up meetings with Bruce and trying to work on the budget breakdown and things like that. So it's a nonstop thing, and that's sort of the Cliff Notes version of my day, generally speaking. So as soon as I get off here, it's not like I sit back and go, oh, great. No, it's back. It's right into all the VO work that I have to do. So it's it's intense, but I love it. I love it. And doing this channel is so much fun. I didn't think it was going to be this fun, but it is. Hopefully that answered your question. And know too that my day, because I don't work a 9-to-5 job, a traditional 9-to-5 job, my days can be very different from one another. So there are some days that are busier than others. I'm always busy, but some days are busier than others. And some days I think I'm going to be doing something on that day, and then it gets changed. You know what I mean? Like if you work a 9-to-5 job, you don't usually, the days you're working, and you don't usually hear, from your boss to say, don't come in. You have to go in, right? For me, sometimes bookings will get changed, switched, moved, and things like that. And then some free time will pop up. Like you'll sometimes see me do a impromptu AMA because, you know what? I was scheduled to to log into this session with a studio in Toronto or LA or whatever, but they had to move it because they wanted to move it for whatever reason. Now I can do an impromptu AMA. It's things like that. So it can change from day to day, but it's usually always that's what's going on in my day. Let me see here. Hopefully I answered that. I think I did. Frank Reiger says, Dave, I'm offended. How come you didn't ask your cat what it wanted to be? If she wants to be a tomcat, she can. Typical male. You're right. I should have asked my cat, listen, if you want to be Yoda, do you want to be Yoda? Do you want to be Bob, Jim, Bim? Emil Bjorklund. Thank you, Emil. Says, my OCD tells my UR H6, H4, H5 is the wrong order. My OCD tells my UR that H6, H4, H5 is in the wrong order. Sorry, I'm not quite sure what you mean. It's a statement. I don't know if you're making a statement or if you're asking a question. Sorry, Emil, if you can sort of just at me and sort of give a little more context. H6, H4, H5 are in the wrong order because obviously it's 4, 5, and 6. I don't know. Maybe you're just making a statement. Sorry, buddy. Just at me and try to clarify. Super chat comes in from TMB. Thank you, buddy. He says, just supporting the channel, Dave. Have a great day. Thank you so much, TMB. Really appreciate it, man. Billy Van Ree. Hang on. Let me see. Van Ree Mercedal? Van Ree Mercedal? I'm Billy, I'm butchering it, but I love your avatar. I love a blue. I love Elvis. Love me some Elvis. Have you been to Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios? I have not, because I have not been in LA ever in the month of September or October. I've been to LA in January. I've been to LA mostly in January, and the last 4 times I've been to LA, it was in October. Actually, I had been to LA in October for the Halloween 40th anniversary convention, but I did not get to Universal Studios for their horror nights. Is that not at Halloween time? I think it's at Halloween time. Maybe it's not at Halloween time. But no, I have not. And then the last few times I was in LA, it was in November for the Voice Arts Awards over at Warner Brothers. So I haven't gone over. I'd like to, though. I think it'd be fun. It'd be fun to go over. Yeah, I'd be down for that. Let me see. Bjorkman says, your VHS movies behind you is in there. Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that. See, that's how much I don't give a fuck about them. I just place them there. I get you now. Thanks, buddy. Mason James, hey, my new patron, says, Dave, I'm a big fan of Rosedale Diner. Of the Rosedale Diner, when I go to Toronto to visit my sister, do you like that joint? I don't think I've ever been to the Rosedale Diner. I don't think I have. I think I've heard of it, though. I mean, I know where Rosedale is, so I'll have to check that diner out. I love me some Greasy Spoon diners. Let me just say that. Jonathan Nichols says, would you like to see a Pumpkinhead remake? Loved the movie as a child. Would love to see A24 make it and keep it really low budget and grimy. Sure. Why not? I don't have an emotional attachment to Pumpkinhead. I haven't seen that movie in decades. It's not one that I was watching a lot. I think I know I have seen it. Sure, why not? I mean, though I don't know if it has. See, you'd have to reinvent it because you would really be reintroducing it to a new generation because a Pumpkinhead's so low. Like it's so low on the, like, I'm not saying for you it wasn't great, but in terms of the bigger sort of general pop culture consciousness in the world of horror, Pumpkinhead's not high on the list. So I would say maybe instead of remaking Pumpkinhead, take the inspiration from that character and do something original. And people would kind of know that you took inspiration from it, but maybe something like that. I don't know. I don't see A24 doing a serious Pumpkinhead movie. It just seems kind of strange. But I don't know. You might be right, man. You might be right. I don't know. Smith's Grove says, Dave, favorite action film. I would say my favorite action film is probably Die Hard, the first Die Hard movie. Die Hard, Predator, T2, True Lies. Love me some True Lies. Any of the Lethal Weapon movies are always fun. I would say that. Yeah, probably those. Those are some of my favorite action movies for sure. Faux show. Of course, I just dated myself there. Jacob Marlowe says, Dave, are you going to get the Loomis and Laurie 2-pack from NECA? I'm not in no rush to do it. I'm in no rush to do it. Like, those guys up there, like, those were sent to me. I didn't, the Michael there and the Laurie there, they were sent to me by, actually, God, did Jim Dorsey send me those? I forget. Jim sent me some cool stuff, though. Jim, if you're watching, I can't remember now who sent that to me. My God, I'm having a brain fart. But anyway, you awesome peeps will sometimes reach out and send me stuff. And I'm just like, that's amazing. I'm not saying to send me that. I'm just saying I haven't purchased those. So the figures, I mean. Jesus, where am I going here? Wait, shh. There we go. So I don't usually purchase figures. It's not something that I'm rushing out to do, but I have seen it and it's really cool. I'm more of an impulse buyer when it comes to, well, it depends. It depends. I did purchase the Freddy figure I have and the Jason figure. It all depends, man. It depends if I'm really feeling it. Maybe there's a day I'm just feeling like I need some figures. You know what I mean? But I'm not a figure collector. So I'm very specific with the figures I collect. Like you'll never come into my place and see like 100 different figures from 100 different horror films. I'm very particular. I'll have some, but that's it. Like it's usually the tentpole stuff. I don't have a Loomis though. I don't have a Loomis, so I'd be down for that. Yeah, maybe I'll look into it because NECA has some good shit. Maybe I'll look into that. Really cool. And if I do, I gotta rearrange back there too. I got so much stuff that's starting to pile on top of each other. Let me see. Michaela Snow talking to Corey Dean. Did I miss any super chats? I don't think I did. Last one was TMB. Good. Jerk Peen says, Dave, you should push back It's Me, Billy, because of the economy. I should push back It's Me, Billy, because of the economy. Well, let me give you some insight to that. First of all, we will make the decision whether to push back or not. That decision's up to us. I get the principle of what you're saying. It's the reason why we haven't launched the Indiegogo campaign. That we were going to launch it this month, and I made the announcement on social media that we were not going to do that. And the reason for that is because of exactly what you said. So it's a day-by-day thing. We don't want to make an announcement and say that we're not going to launch our campaign until, November, when we might be able to launch it in August or might be able to launch it in July or June. So it really is a day-by-day, week-by-week thing. We knew that we weren't going to be launching it in April. And myself and Bruce are in agreement that what we're going to do is we're going to reassess and see where things are at the end of April 30th. And then if we're still in the same spot or if things are still really bad, then we will forego the month of May as well and we'll not launch it in May. Now, what does that mean? Well, the longer the campaign gets delayed, the more likely it is that the production will get delayed. Now, as of right now, our plan, if we raise the money, we have to raise the money. I mean, It's Me, Billy is not going to happen if we don't raise the money. So if we are able to raise the money, our goal was to go to camera in November. That was our goal. Now, if that doesn't happen and we can't launch our campaign till August, let's say, we're not going to shoot in November. The likely scenario then will probably be shooting in February or March. And that's still a time of year that you can still get that Christmassy sort of, wintry kind of vibe. So hopefully we don't have to do that. And our fingers are crossed that we don't have to do that, because we recognize that right now people have lost their jobs and people need to, put their money towards the real important things in life, which of course are, your family and food on the table and your bills and keeping yourself afloat. That is the real important thing. And we're all in the same position. So it's we recognize that, but it is really a day by day, week by week situation. We don't want to unnecessarily delay it longer than we need to, but we don't want to make any knee-jerk reactions or decisions as well. So that's what's happening with the campaign. We will reassess at the end of April, and if there's good news to come out of this, it is that it just gives us more time to fine tune and tweak the campaign and work on, fine tuning and tweaking the script and shit like that. It just gives us more of an opportunity to make sure that we put our best foot forward. So that's the silver lining. But it is disappointingly frustrating because we were literally on the cusp of getting ready to launch our campaign and this happens. But everybody's in the same boat. It's not personal, right? It's not like there's somebody, that's causing this. It's everybody's in the same boat. So yeah, we'll see what happens, my man, but fingers are crossed that we won't have to delay it longer than we need to. So we'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens. But I am so excited for It's Me, Billy. We got a great script. We've assembled so far a great team. We're not all there yet, but the people we have assembled is great. Look at these there's your main cast right there for It's Me, Billy: Victoria Miro, Shelby Handley, and Malika Henney. And we'll be playing Sam and Emma and Justine. And we are really excited about it. These three actors are very excited about it. And we're all keeping our fingers crossed that sooner rather than later, right? Sooner rather than later. But we're going to need your help. When that campaign launches, man, we're going to need your help, guys. We're going to need your help. And I have faith. I have faith in the McRae's. I have faith in you guys. That you guys are going to help bring It's Me, Billy to life. And I know it. I have the faith. I have the faith in the McRae's. Toronto Freddy says, is Leah Keller your girlfriend? Yes. Tiger Man says, Dave, in Freddy versus Jason, they said that Freddy is afraid of fire and Jason is afraid of water. Is there anything Michael is afraid of? Maybe heart, wind, wind, or earth? Heat, maybe you mean? Heart, wind, or earth? He's afraid of his heart? Is Michael afraid of? Jason's afraid of water. Is there anything Michael's afraid of? Freddy's Jason. No, because Jason and Freddy are different types of characters. Michael is more of, again, that he's Jason's a, maybe, but I'm gonna, between those three, I'm gonna say no. Because I think really at the end of the day, it's Michael, the original intent of the character, the foundation, the seed of that character is he doesn't feel anything. I'm not saying he doesn't feel pain, but he's blank, pale, emotionless. He doesn't have even the most rudimentary sense of, understanding of life or death, good or evil, right or wrong. He's just a force of nature. He's just this, so I don't think he knows what to be afraid of. I don't think he consciously makes those complex decisions. I don't think he's compartmentalizing those thoughts. See, Freddy, we know why Freddy would be afraid of fire, if he is. We know why Jason would be afraid of water, and it makes sense to their character. Michael, on the other hand, I mean, he's not. You can definitely scrounge scraps and come up with something that you think he might be afraid of, but I don't think I don't think the evidence is there when we think about his character. He's not like Jason or Freddy. He's not making those complex thoughts or decisions. He doesn't know what he should be afraid of or shouldn't be afraid of. He doesn't know. He's like a force of nature. See, that's what was so great about, and when I say that Michael is without motive, when I say there's no motive to Michael's actions, I'm talking about like a motive as opposed to motivation, right? And so there's different. I mean, he might have been motivated to go after Lori because again, we're talking about the first film, because she reminded him of his sister Judith, and he might not even be aware of that. That might be a very subconscious thing, right? He's not necessarily making these complex, compartmentalized decisions. Wow, she looks like my sister Judith, blonde hair, big boobs. Wow, sexy. Let's go after. I mean, he's not necessarily thinking those things, right? In any sort of way at all. It's more instinctual. He's drawn to her for reasons he's unaware of. And I think that he doesn't think those things. He's without conscious reason. And so if there is something he's afraid of, I don't even know if he would know what that was. And does he even know to be afraid of anything? Does he even know to be afraid of something that he should be afraid of? Do you know what I mean? That's how I've always seen the character of Michael is very in a more of that kind of a character. So yeah, that's how should the wind be afraid of something? I mean, I don't, the wind doesn't, it's not making those decisions. Anyway, that's kind of how I see it, but I'm sure fans all around could figure out something. Mookie Blaylock says Halloween was already popular before a sequel was even announced. Yes, that's true. That is true. It was the most successful independent horror film in motion picture history. That is true. Are you talking? Yeah, that's true, Mookie. Ain't gonna deny you there. David Ferguson says, laughing at Mason James. Jerpeen says Michael's afraid of rappers doing kung fu. There it is, ladies and germs. We figured it out. Michael is afraid of rappers doing kung fu. Let me go back and get him in there. All right, here we go.
Trick or treat, motherfucker!
There you go. I always laugh because that's me doing that. That's actually not Busta Rhymes, obviously, because he doesn't say it like that. I always say, he says it like, trick or treat, motherfucker. And I'm always like,
trick or treat, motherfucker!
I'm always like really intense, the cartoon satirical version. Mark Johnson says, Dave, give me a shout out saying, stay safe. I'll see you in your nightmares, Mark, in a Freddy Krueger voice. Okay, let me,
Hey, Mark, stay safe. I'll see you in your dreams. No, I'll see you in your nightmares. You are my child now.
There you go, buddy. Thanks for supporting the channel, Mark. Stay safe. H.E. Pennypacker says, I am not human. I am just an illusion, organized confusion, amusing. Fascinating. I'm confused. Definitely. What do we got? A few more minutes. We'll go here for a few more minutes. Wonderful to see so many people have tuned in for today's show. Did I miss any super chats? I just want to see. I want to make sure I got them. Oh, wait a minute. I missed the wrong one. I always like to make sure. I'm going to go back to the other window just to make sure because it's possible I did, and I don't want to miss any accidentally. So I just got to go to the other window. I thought I had it up, but I didn't have it up. All right, here we go. This will tell me. No, TMB was the last one. Great. Perfecto. Robert Thidoff says, did you ever watch Knots Landing, Dave? Greatest nighttime soap opera ever. No, I did not watch Knots Landing, but I know what you're talking about. Corey Dean says, Dave, if you could have directed either of these with creative freedom to do whatever you wanted, which would you choose? Halloween 5 or Freddy's Dead? I would have chose Halloween 5. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Freddy it's hard. I mean, Freddy, like, I think because 4, I don't think 4 is great, but it's fine. Like, it's a decent, acceptable sequel. With some, it's got some nice things in it. Mask is shit, but you change the mask and it improves the film quite a bit. Got one of the most iconic endings in the history of horror. And I think it's a cool, I think I would have been more interested to do Halloween 5. Because I would have seen an opportunity. Freddy's Dead, it's like, well, 5 is garbage. 4 is not as bad as 5, but it's garbage. I kind of feel like we're too far gone at that point, and I don't think they would have of course, you say anything you want. I still think I think I would have chose Halloween 5. I think I would have chosen 5. Mashi says, hey Dave, greetings from Germany. Hello, Germany. What do you think about the Halloween fan films? Myers, the Butcher of Haddonfield, and Myers, the Evil of Haddonfield from Blinky 500. I have not seen either of those movies, so I don't know. I'd have to watch them. I'm aware of Blinky 500. Cool dude. I'd have to watch them. Shout out to Blinky 500. He's been making those kinds of fan films for years, man. Rock on, Blinky. Let me see. Lauren Downing says, thank you for my dad's B-Day shout out in the way of Trump back on Friday. He loved it. No problem, Lauren. He's showing it to all his buddies. That's great. Great. Tiger Man, if Captain Planet was here, he would kick some some Corona butt. Yes, he would. Captain Underpants, too. Captain Underpants wouldn't put up with that shit, I'll tell you that. Okay, we'll go 4 more minutes, because I did start about 4 minutes late today. 4 more minutes, we'll take it. We'll take it all the way to 90 minutes. 4 more minutes to go. Ed Red 77 says, Dave, considering the popularity of The Exorcist, why wasn't there a boom of Exorcist-type movies in the late 70s like there was slashers in the 80s because of Halloween and F-13? Well, I think horror was, I think it's okay. Off the top of my head, the time, I think it was very taboo and very touchy. Listen, The Exorcist, again, 1973, it was a time when, there were a lot of very deep religious people that were afraid of that movie and trying to get that movie shut down, trying to prevent theaters from showing it. I mean, it might sound a little crazy, but watch a documentary on The Exorcist. Try again in a few seconds. Thanks, Google. Shut the fuck up. Watch a documentary on The Exorcist, and you'll be blown away by the cultural and pop culture impact that movie had, both good and bad. It was a different era. It was a different time in the world. And, now we're wiser. I would like to think we're wiser and, we understand things more. But back then, there were people that were very afraid of that movie. And people, religious people who were interested and curious about it, who were going to see it, who were walking out of the theaters, petrified, scared to death, thinking the movie was, it's blasphemy to even show that film, and it was a very different time. So I think, although it was hugely successful and profitable, I think that to make a string of those types of movies, I just don't think was, something you thought about doing. It was a very sort of acquired taste of a thing in that area. The Exorcist movies really started to come out more towards the you saw them more in the late 80s, early 90s, but more in the 2000s, right? The Last Exorcism, the Exorcism of Emily Rose. There's other exorcism films as well. Even The Conjuring is kind of an exorcism sort of movie in some ways. Not really, but in terms of demons and things like that. I just think it's it just wasn't the climate for our society, and the climate for the movie-going industry at that point didn't lend itself well for a string of exorcism movies. That's off the top of my head. Of course, I wasn't born until 1979, so that's off the top of my head. The slasher genre is not something that's going to, I mean, there might be some people that think it's a little gratuitous, but it's not offensive in the same sort of ways. Religion and Christianity, and it was a very, now, it's just different. It was just a different world. I think you know what I'm trying to get at. It was just a very different world. Very, very different world. Eddie Green 101 sends in a super chat, says, "Hey Dave, like more Dunkin' or Starbucks?" Well, do we have Dunkin' Donuts up here? Yeah, I think we do. Not as much as Tim Hortons or Starbucks. I would have to say I'm not a big fan. I don't drink coffee. So I'll go with Dunkin', because I haven't been to a Dunkin' Donuts in a long time. Nick Kunda sends a super chat and says, "Who do you think would be a good actor to portray the Emperor when E. McDermott gets too old to sadly pass away?" I don't know. I don't think there's any reason to anybody to play the Emperor again, because the Emperor is gone. Is he gone? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Reese Wilson says, "Hey Dave, stay cool, man. You stay cool too, my man." But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that could probably do it. But off the top of my head, Nick, I'm not too sure. That's a good question. I hope we don't see him return. So I'm going to say at the moment, nobody. I'm not sure. But I know what you mean, like hypothetically, right? Who would be a good actor to play him? I don't know. You need somebody who's older, but somebody who possesses a strong, you need a good character actor. That's who you need. Somebody who is, because that's what Ian McDermott is. He's not a leading man, right? You need a good character actor. Yeah. Now, I will let that sit with you guys to whoever you think that would be, but yes, a good character actor for sure. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me on episode 39 of McRae Live here on this April the 7th. Folks, I want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the super chats. Really appreciate them. They keep this channel going. They keep the shows going. So I really do appreciate you sending them in, and all of you who tuned in for this show today. Really do appreciate you guys watching. Of course, I will be back. Well, like I said, there's always an opportunity and a chance that I will come back at some point to do a standalone video, because you never know what I'm going to think of or feel or what's going to grind my gears or something. Who knows? But if you don't see me later today or tomorrow, I definitely will be back on Thursday morning at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time right here for episode 40 of McRae Live. 40! Crazy of McRae Live. Frank Greger says a super chat is missed. Let's go back and see. Super chat was missed. Let's take it here. You're right. You're right. Thank you, Frank. Can always count on my awesome McCrazies to let me make sure that I don't miss anything. So this is Rikia Fleming. Am I saying that right? Thank you so much for the super chat, Rikia. Hey, Dave, I absolutely love your channel. Well, we love you being here. You're like my favorite professor. That's funny. Thoughts on Michael Myers trending on Twitter last night? I had no idea that Michael Myers was trending on Twitter last night. Why was Michael Myers trending on Twitter last night? Does anybody know why Michael Myers was trending on Twitter last night? I don't know. Interesting. I'm going to have to do a little bit of research and check that out. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I really appreciate that. And it's always good to know that I'm like your professor. That's funny. That's cute. Awesome. So guys, like I said, really appreciate your time and, tuning in, watching, because I wouldn't be doing this if you guys weren't here. So I really do appreciate it. And I will be back, like I said, either maybe between, I don't know, but I'll definitely be back on Thursday morning. So stay safe. Stay locked down as best you can. I know it's crazy time, but don't be afraid to go out and get some exercise. Go out, get some exercise, physical, distance yourself from certain people, but don't be afraid to go out, walk down the street, breathe the fresh air, get some exercise, walk around the block, even if it's for 5 minutes. It'll make yourself feel a whole lot better. Trust me. All right. I'll see you guys soon. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you guys soon. Cheers.